reason why there's this awkward angle is because I want to show you this. This is the famous tiger's nest here in Bhutan. And after trekking to the tiger's nest, you can actually hike even higher and come to this beautiful place called Paradise. And from here, you get a magnificent view of Paro, Bhutan. So for this video, I'm going to have a mixture of me talking and also animations to share my goals and learnings here in Bhutan. So you'll see a mix of face and animation for this video. So let's begin. I came to Bhutan because I wanted to learn more about the Gross National Happiness Index. I first came to learn about this index when I was in college, and I heard that a king felt that countries should not base its success off of the GDP, which is the gross national domestic product, but instead it should base its success off of happiness, or the Gross National Happiness Index. So Bhutan then went and developed this concept and went in with research, development, and is actually implementing it in the society today here in Bhutan. So I made it a point on my bucket list to come here to learn more about this concept. So that's what I want to learn. What I actually learned. So 10 days is a very short amount of time to learn about any topic. But fortunately, I was put into contact with the right people here to learn more about the G&H quickly. At least an introduction to the G&H and how it is implemented in the government now. So thank you, Cynthia, for the introduction, and thank you, Kaka, for sharing with me your knowledge on the G&H. So Kaka actually works for the Gross National Happiness Index Committee here in Bhutan, and his department ensures that every policy that Bhutan passes follows the G&H measurements and metrics. And if they don't, then the policies need to be revised so that it follows the G&H metrics. So he was kind enough to come to my hotel on the first night here in Bhutan, and he brought his laptop and presented me the whole concept of the G&H. He went through what the G&H is, the metrics to calculate the G&H, how the G&H has developed with time, and then also how the G&H is incorporated into the government and the policies. And he also was kind enough to allow me to bombard him with questions because I had a lot, and he answered every one of them. So thank you, Kaka, for being kind enough to share with me your knowledge on the G&H and take the time to walk me through and answer all my questions. I greatly appreciate it. So what I did to learn more about it was, first, I did research on my own on the G&H. Second, I met with Kaka to learn more about it from the government standpoint. And then I actually met with locals in the different cities here I visited in Bhutan, and I asked them about the G&H and their definition of happiness and a few other questions, just to see how the G&H impacts them on a ground level. So what I learned. I'm only going to share with you an introduction to the G&H in the short time that I have, but I'll also provide some resources for you to look into if you want to learn more about the G&H, because it is a very special concept, and Bhutan is a very special place for creating it and spearheading this concept through. So the G&H. The official description of the G&H is a development approach that seeks to achieve a harmonious balance between material well-being and the spiritual, emotional, and cultural needs of an individual and society. Now, to achieve this, the G&H prioritizes 4 main pillars for the country's development, and from these 4 pillars branches out 9 key domains. And then from these 9 key domains branches out 32 indicators, and all of this is to accurately measure, analyze, and implement the G&H. Where I'm going to focus is the 9 domains, because I feel like these best capture the essence of what the G&H is trying to achieve. The interesting part about these 9 domains is that they cover traditional societal concerns like healthcare and education, but also novel areas like time use and cultural resilience. To paint you a better picture, I'll walk you through the 9 domains. I'll start with the standard societal areas. The first one is free healthcare, and this covers everything from regular visits to the doctor, to medication, to even more severe treatments and procedures, which is super awesome. The next one is free education, and this is free education until the 10th grade. And then from there, students need to test and qualify for free higher education. The next one is living standard, which I know less about, but from my understanding, it refers to access to resources, including both cash and non-cash income. And this is essentially how they want to try to measure standard of living. And the fourth one is ecological diversity and resilience. And this is the one that I love the most. If you did not know, Bhutan is a carbon neutral country. This means that the amount of carbon being emitted is equal to the amount of carbon being absorbed by the country. That's super awesome because most countries nowadays emit way more carbon than they actually absorb. In addition to maintaining a carbon neutral status, Bhutan has set requirements to keep 60% of the country under forest cover and 50% of the country as protected areas. These are areas in which animals can freely roam across the country. In addition to this, any killing is illegal in the country. This, of course, does not apply to accidental killings, like when a deer jumps in front of your car. So the fifth domain is good governance, and this section is interesting because it includes a clause that allows the people to impeach their king at any time if they feel like he is no longer looking out for the best interest of the country. Now, I'm going to jump to the additional, more novel areas now. And the first of these is psychological well-being. This looks after life satisfaction, positive, negative emotions, and even spirituality, because spirituality is huge in Bhutan. The seventh domain is time use, and this ensures a time split between work time, leisure time, and sleep time. The latest target I've seen so far is 8.5 hours for sleep, 8 hours for work, and 7.5 hours for leisure. So in the winter months, the work hours are even less, so they have more time for sleep or leisure. So the eighth domain is cultural diversity and resilience, which I also love because this aims to preserve the culture while developing and having a huge influence from international countries. So this domain promotes the native language, the native dress, native arts, and native ethics and traditions. There's a term here that I will butcher, so I'll just write it down for you to look up if you're interested. In addition to all this, they also discourage discrimination of any form. So that's also important. The last and ninth domain is community vitality, and this aims to promote a strong community by encouraging individuals to volunteer within the community, to donate to the community, and also promotes a village culture. And what this refers to is essentially helping each other out whenever someone within the community needs help without expecting anything in return. It's sort of like, hey, if you need to build a house, I'll come over to help you build a house. And when I need to build a house, it would also be helpful to have you come over and help me build the house. Type of unspoken ethics. And it also works to maintain a high level of safety within the nation, which I also felt because I felt safe wherever I went, at any time of the day, wherever it was in Bhutan. So those are the 9 domains. And from these 9 domains, the way that every policy is passed in Bhutan is through this policy screening tool, which really ranks whether this policy covers the 9 domains, and if it doesn't, they would have to reject it and revise it so that it does. And it also ensures that by passing one policy, it doesn't bring down the other policies as well. Like, it doesn't hurt any of the other areas of life. I think that's incredible. And this is probably the biggest and most fascinating thing that I've learned about the G&H is really how amazing it is for a country and a government to prioritize these 9 things, right? And that every policy that passes has to fulfill these 9 domains, or at least be very good for these 9 domains, for the overall benefit of everyone here. And I think that's so amazing. If you look at other areas of the world with developed countries where the priority is wealth and profit, you see inequality, huge inequalities, the very wealthy and the very poor. And it's the rich who benefit and the poor who really suffer from this system. So next, I then went to talk to locals from the different cities that I visited, and the questions I asked them were, one, how they define happiness from their perspective, and then how much do they know about the G&H, and if they didn't know much, I would explain to them the G&H, and then where they felt like they were lacking in terms of the G&H, the 9 domains, and then after that, mainly their perspective on life and other principles. And I found their answers to be very, very interesting. And I think the main thing that you'll see is really how G&H and Buddhism are interlinked. Because Buddhism is very big here in Bhutan, as I will mention in the other videos. But the philosophies of Buddhism come into play when it comes to happiness, because the ideas are to really reduce your desires and be happy and content with what you have, the basic needs. So when I asked the locals, most of them responded with, happiness to me is having what I need. If I have 3 meals a day and I can spend time with my family, I'm happy. I don't need extravagant things. I don't need a nice car. I don't need nice things. All I need is really the basic essentials, and that's happiness for me. And I found that to be very, very interesting. And then when I asked them how much they know about the G&H, I feel like some of them knew, some of them didn't know. They had a brief understanding of it, but as we went through the 9 domains, they understood it, and they do see it within Bhutan. And in terms of where they felt like they were lacking, surprisingly, a lot of them felt very strongly in that they had support in all the 9 domains. The only times I heard that a field was lacking was in education, and it was with youth. A few of the youth that I spoke to, they only had free education up to 10th grade. They didn't do well enough to qualify for the free higher education. And the only way that they can get higher education is studying and taking an exam and qualifying again, or saving up themselves and paying for college themselves. And that was the case for one of the people that I met in one of the villages. He's working his way to earn the money to study higher education now. But everywhere else, they felt very strong in, and very interesting, they felt very strongly in the good governance section. All of them fully trusted the government to take care of them and their needs, and that the government is working for the best of them and the people in the country. And I thought that was extremely, extremely interesting. So yeah, that's the summary of what I learned here in Bhutan. The concept of G&H, talking with someone from the Global National Happiness Index Committee who works with the central government, learning more about how the G&H is implemented in the government and policies in the future of Bhutan, and then talking with the locals to get the ground level perspective on happiness here and the ideas here. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let's jump to the next section. Thank you for listening.